I'm Nicole.
I'm Rolando.
And I'm Eddie Z.
And this is Remakes, Reboots, and Revivals.
An original podcast
about unoriginality.
And this is episode 1, part 1 on our Wolfman series. And today we're going to focus on the original Wolfman from 1941. Distributed by Universal Studios, directed by George Wagner, American film, a pretty well-known Universal monster movie.
A little fun fact about today, about our recording, particularly today, is today is a full moon.
Today's a full moon?
Today's a full moon.
That's where's all the crazies.
First full moon of 2025, and it's also called the Wolf Moon.
The first moon of the year is called the Wolf Moon?
Called the Wolf Moon.
Oh, that is interesting.
And it's right tonight. It is at its beautiful peak.
It was really nice out because it's not cloudy, so...
Yes. Okay, so, like I said, today is the first Wolfman. Well, what is the Wolfman about before we even get into some history and our thoughts on it? A brief summary. The Wolfman is a classic Universal horror film that follows Larry Talbot as he returns to his family estate in Wales and becomes cursed after being bitten by a werewolf. And as the full moon rises, Larry transforms, struggling with his dual nature and wreaking havoc in the local village. And the film explores a lot of different themes, themes of fate, superstition, the human condition, and it is definitely not the first werewolf, but it is the one that popularized it and kind of cemented it as a very popular myth in pop culture. When it comes to the Universal monster movies, most of the time it's Dracula, Frankenstein, Wolfman. Those are like the big three. We also have like the Mummy, and we have the Invisible Man, Creature of the Black Lagoon, but this is the big three.
Right.
And out of them, have you seen all of these? Have you seen Frankenstein? I know we've seen Dracula. First time seeing Wolfman?
No, I've seen Wolfman before. Are you talking about any of the Universal monster movies?
Yes, I know you've seen Bela Lugosi's Dracula. Have you seen Frankenstein?
I don't know if I've seen Frankenstein. I don't think I've seen The Invisible Man.
The Invisible Man is really impressive in terms of visual effects, because that's also what these movies are known for. Other than like scaring people and giving people back in the 30s and 40s, nightmares, and really creating the most prolific versions of these characters, costumes, sets, makeup are like to 1,000 on these movies. They're always just really, really well done. By the way, we probably will be doing Frankenstein later this year.
Yeah, there's a few Frankenstein coming out, I think.
So if you haven't seen it, you will be seeing it.
There's a Bride of Frankenstein coming out too, right?
Yeah, 2 completely different Frankenstein properties. Yeah. So we're going to have a big old Frankenstein time.
Costuming, the Bela Lugosi's Dracula wasn't like that impressive of a costume, right? Like, I think the most impressive one is actually probably Wolfman and Creature from the Black Lagoon. Great use of practical effects.
I don't necessarily think it's impressive as much as it's become iconic. Sometimes simpler is better. I mean, it's like the James Dean red jacket, white t-shirt, blue jeans. That's an iconic look. Sometimes simpler the better. And like, you just kind of use the whole little count tie and put on a black cape over your black blazer, and that's it. Yeah. But people know vampire. So
interesting that Bela Lugosi was part of the monster universe, because they were connected, right? Like, these movies had sequels and stuff, right? Like spin-offs and stuff.
Yes, most of them had sequels, especially after the success of Bride of Frankenstein. They were like, oh my God, we could keep making these movies. And most of the time, Bela Lugosi is in these sequels, actually. He's kind of like the recurring actor in all of them.
So he's like
Bela
Stan Lee.
Kind of, yeah. Well, Bela Lugosi, because Dracula dies, and he never plays Dracula again outside of Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein. He only played it twice. But what he does is, after a while, after Boris Karloff leaves Frankenstein, he becomes a Frankenstein monster. He is in The Wolfman too, and he was with Lon Chaney Jr., who is in Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein as the Wolfman. So Lon Chaney Jr. is the son of one of the most iconic silent film actors, Lon Chaney. Lon Chaney himself was kind of like renowned for his performances in The Phantom of the Opera and other films, and he was someone who is widely known for his like makeup and the fact that I think he was like the man with 1,000 faces, right? He could play any character and transform into them, and he would just always look different.
Okay.
And a big legacy to live up to And I'll say it right now, I'm not really a big fan of Lon Chaney Jr. I think the only time I've ever really liked him was in Spider Baby. That was him, if you remember Spider
Oh, I
Baby.
do
I made
remember
you
Spider
guys.
Baby. Yes, yes, yes. You
Yeah.
made us watch it. That was a good movie.
Yeah, that was a fun movie, and I actually liked him in it. I remember being like, "Ugh, Lon Chaney Jr.'s in this.
Who was he?
Yikes!"
Wait, who was he in it?
He was the caretaker of the
Okay. All right.
children.
All right. All right.
So,
Got it. Yeah.
but not. I'm just not the biggest Lon Chaney fan, and therefore, because of that, Lon Chaney Jr. fan. I've out of the big three of the Universal monster movies, I've never been drawn to the Wolfman, and upon revisiting it this time, I think I know why. But let's just talk a little bit about the success of this movie. Obviously, it was so successful that it spawned many sequels. 1943's Frankenstein meets Wolfman, 1944's House of Frankenstein and House of Dracula, which is kind of like him facing off of all the different, like they wanted to pair him with Dracula and then they wanted to pair him with Frankenstein, obviously. And then that whole came into fruition with Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein. Wolfman has been rebooted before, and werewolves have just been something that ever since, I feel like you can't go maybe 10, 15 years without some sort of new werewolf movie.
Mm-hmm.
The first reboot was in 2010 with Benicio del Toro. We have decided we won't be talking about that.
Yeah,
so.
I can't believe it was like decades since it was like rebooted, right? Because like The Mummy got rebooted famously with Brendan Fraser before that, and then it also failed with Tom Hanks. And the Tom Hanks one, they were trying not Tom Hanks, I'm sorry, Tom Cruise. And the Tom Cruise one, they were going to try to turn that into the monster universe.
Yeah, they've been trying to revitalize this new monster movie for Universal for a while. And outside of Britain doing it with the Hammer horror movies in the 50s, like when we covered Dracula with Christopher Lee, they haven't really ever been successful. It's quite the feat. So tune in for our next episode to see if the new Wolfman works, because this is sort of their own Universal monster movie reboot going on. That's the beginning of Wolfman. Let's just talk about this right now. The character of Larry Talbot, probably one of my least favorite characters in an old movie I've ever seen.
I would agree on that. He definitely gives off Predator vibes before he becomes a predator, right?
Yeah, it's like before he was a wolf, this dude was a dog.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah, such a dog. He's such a dog.
Yeah, and not only is he a predator, he's just incredibly privileged. Like the way that he approaches that woman is just so entitled, and I just have this immediate dislike for him, and it really makes it hard for me to connect.
Well, yeah, this movie certainly does not help that idea of no means no, right? Because like, how many times did she aggressively say no to a date before she finally succumbed to it?
Like peeping on her from across, like literally spying on her. Like it almost is like, is this supposed to be funny? Now, I watch a lot of old movies. I know that a lot of the time, sometimes there's things that are supposed to be romantic by their standards and by our standards aren't. Very seldomly is it this bad, where you kind of like can't make any excuse for it.
Yeah, this was pretty bad. It's
pretty bad. It's
pretty bad. Like I feel like even by yesterday's standards, it was a pretty rough thing to watch.
Yeah, I would agree.
It's the thing with this too. It's like it could have been cute. He's working on a telescope. He's trying to get the right, focus there, and then he sees this beautiful woman, and this is what sparks an interest, right? It just lingered too long, and then he comes in with that. He comes in like, oh, about the earring thing, and that was just like, oh no, I was like, this is creepy. Yeah. And it's interesting because I wanted to like this character from all of a sudden he comes in. He's almost like the prodigal son. He's the one that left because he's like older brother was going to inherit everything, the title and the house, and then his older brother just dies in a hunting accident.
Which is it implied that it's a werewolf related accident, or
could be?
Like I
there's enough to read into that.
Yeah.
So now he comes in and he's like, "Dad, I'm not gonna fail you, blah, blah, blah," and everything. But he has this kind of almost disconnect to like his mind is preoccupied on other things. Like he's almost like restless. He almost appears a little bit restless, but now he's faced with this obligation on taking on the family legacy.
Mm-hmm.
And correct me if I'm wrong too. Like the girl that he wants to like get with, like she's like, well, the only way I'll go out with you
Ellen,
is if I have a chaperone.
basically. I
Yeah.
mean, she needs a chaperone because she's also engaged, right? Which we haven't
She's
brought up.
also engaged. No
This
means
is also
no.
engaged,
Indeed.
yeah.
Yeah.
But
Seriously.
she was kind of playing
So-
with fire too here. Like she was, I don't
So,
know what she saw, like why she was interested, but she was.
well, I also think too. It's like because they're so he's coming from a rich family or
Mhm.
a family of titledness,
Mm-hmm.
right? And these are commoners in that perspective. So, what is the consequence of saying no, like really no,
Oh,
or
you're saying that
or
because of his
or
title,
yeah, or
she was
like
always bound
feeling
to
a
say
certain
yes.
obligation
Okay.
to, and I don't think she brought the chaperone. I thought that she brought her friend as like, oh, my friend is single, kind of thing. Like
Oh,
Okay, yeah.
interesting.
Mm.
So I was
Wow.
so I was looking for these little things.
I don't know. It
But
seemed from like her reaction waiting for him. She looked a little disappointed that he hadn't shown up. It seemed like she was very much interested in him.
hmm.
Well, that
She
Well,
poor
I saw
friend.
his face of disappointment when the girlfriend came. He did not hide it. He was just it was like, mm.
mm-hmm.
That's,
That
Yes.
was it
it's
was quite
like
funny.
this. I was like, I'm being cock blocked right now, and I'm like,
Yeah. And then, but the poor girl, I mean, should have never left her friggin' house because she ends up dying that night because it is told that pretty much they go see gypsies and she gets her fortune told. And you find out, we found out already, but pretty much the mark of a pentagram will appear on the hand of someone who is about to be
A
killed,
victim, yeah.
a victim of werewolves. And only the people who are bitten by it can see this, right? So Bela Lugosi, who plays this gypsy, he's the one who sees it on her, and he's like, well, fuck. Like literally, it's a full moon, and I'm about to kill this woman. So he encourages her to get out of there, and it doesn't happen in time. While trying to rescue her, at least seeing like what the hell is going on over there. Some wolf is attacking this woman. It's when Larry gets bit.
And then he kills the werewolf.
Yes, and then the werewolf turns back into Bela Lugosi, and he's like, what?
Yeah.
And like just all this classic lore gets built within that scene.
I have to just mention this. I love how everyone's excited about the gypsies. Like the gypsies coming to town. It's just like celebration. It's like the gypsies are here, and then it's like, let's get our fortunes told, like, oh, let's do this. Like, oh, it's like a fun thing to do tonight.
Yeah,
You know?
it was very brown facing. Let me tell you, the picture of the gypsies here was not a flattering one. And not just that, but so he kills her. But actually, I think that's when the film actually kind of becomes the most interesting, when he's kind of caught up in like a murder mystery in some sorts, right? Like he's the main suspect of this murder of Bella. I hated that Bela Lugosi's character was named Bella, but yeah, Bella was the one who was the victim and stuff, and like they find his cane, so as a result, he's the main suspect. Obviously, like this film is an hour 10 minutes. Like they just kind of breeze through all this stuff, but I don't know. There was some room to play for this idea of classism, right? Because the father, who is like a lord of this estate, he just wants to brush it off, and he wants to let it go because he has the privilege of being able to do that. And the cop, who I believe the constable. One of the cops was Ellen's paramour, right? Her fiance.
Yes.
Yeah. Who, by the way, was a better looking guy than Talbot.
A little bit gullible too, because he wasn't asking the right questions.
At no point, yeah, it's true.
This is true.
Nana, what are you doing out so late in the forest with some dude?
This is
not
true.
Me.
This is
Yeah.
like these people in this area are way too quick to just walk into these foggy woods.
What is this like leaving Jenny behind? Like, oh, I'm gonna go to the woods and leave my friend hanging out with gypsies, hang out with this stranger in the woods, and leave Jenny behind. And at one point, I really felt like she was really upset about Jenny at all.
Oh, yeah.
I did have no sense that she did not feel guilty about Jenny's untimely death and how horrific it was, and especially when Jenny's mom was like, what were you doing in the woods? What do you do?
Well, I mean, Jenny's mom basically called her a whore.
Yeah,
Like it was without saying it. Like they called her. It's just like you stupid slut. This is all your fault.
Jenny's mom was asking the right questions. She's asking, like, what were you doing with this strange man in the woods? Why did you leave my daughter behind? You know, those are the right questions.
Those are the right questions, absolutely.
And I love how the townsfolk then start gathering together and start, like, being very hostile towards Larry, rightfully so. But it's this idea of outsiders, right? Because he was the prodigal son, and this idea of like being an outsider in a village and like being ostracized for it. It just happens to be the fact that he, in fact, was a werewolf.
And that's the thing too. This is 1941. This is wartime, even though if it was released before December 7th, we weren't quite in it, but it was still of this time. And so this kind of has World War II anxieties all over it, but it also kind of has this like idea of kind of like uncontrolled aggression within your own system, which is something that this guy named Bruce Colwyn wrote. He said the Wolfman expresses and exercises the id force of uncontrolled aggression in its own system, the werewolf, in Larry Talbot with his werewolf phases, and in the community. Talbot often behaves as if he has pretty much privilege when courting the engaged Gwen, and when he doesn't have access to that privilege, it can release this inner beast, right?
Yeah, specifically the prima nocta kind of thing, meaning like he believes that he should be able to have her sexually because he is just all over her, and he is not like hiding it. And
no, he's not. This film is more interesting with a contemporary read, where it's like if rejection and things not necessarily going your way can literally turn a man of privilege into a monster who can then abuse it and can lose control.
I don't know. I mean, the movie did come out in 1941, and even though he was he was the antagonist at the end of the day.
Like, yeah, but the movie also felt sympathetically towards him.
A little bit sympathetic towards him, sure.
I don't know. I think a
he was
lot
still
sympathetic towards him.
You think so? I mean, he died, right, for his sins.
But it was also a tragedy.
I guess. I mean, yes, it was a tragedy,
particularly with the father aspect. Yeah. But
he still got punished, right?
Well, of course, he had to.
Oh, that's right. The code.
Yeah.
So, but also, it's always in the framework too that, even the curse of the werewolf does not discriminate. Even the kindness of man, the man who prays, can fall victim of it, indicating that a nice guy can be a victim of this horror thing, right?
Yeah.
But we all know about the nice guy.
Mm-hmm.
Now, as we filter this through our 21st century lens, we all know about the nice guy, and we know that there's always something sinister or insidious underneath the nice guy,
or that there can be.
Yeah, absolutely. The story is not the best thing about this movie. Let's be honest, right?
Yeah.
What is special about this movie?
The special effects. I will say, like, the transition from Larry becoming the Wolfman, they're great. And you can see the hard work that went into the practical effects. Apparently, it was about 10 hours of makeup each time to try to get the shot. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Which is wild, right? Because, like, mind you, it's they're just doing like a few a few shots of this just to be able to make this transition happen. So the actor Lon Chaney Jr.
Lon Chaney Jr.
Yeah, he has complained that this has been his least favorite. He did not like the makeup process for being the werewolf.
10 hours, that's a whole day. Yeah. It's not the most, so by today's standards too, when you watch it, you're like, oh, they're just literally putting cross dissolve as they're slowly applying makeup. Like, okay, he's an hour on the chair, he goes back to set, hour in chair. What's impressive is the makeup, not necessarily the cross dissolve transition of it forming, right?
I mean, it's charming. I like the cross dissolve, right? Like, it gets the job done. It got the job done, like, for what they could do back then. Like, they didn't have computers.
I also think that it's like still pretty nice to watch and convincing. Like, it still gets me, even though I know exactly how they did it. It's not the most inventive thing that Hollywood has done in that era, but I think it's fine. I also happen to think that the set design is one of the best things about this movie, because that forest, those woods with that fog, is just so freaking iconic. And like, I would love to be on that soundstage. Like, get me in like Universal Studios where they're going to build that new like monster movie thing.
They are,
and
yes,
like let me walk through that set design.
I think they're doing
I would
Castle,
get the chills. No, they're going to do a bunch of them.
Are they?
It's the Universal monsters,
Well,
and
I
the
don't know
Wolfman is one of them.
No, I know, but like I don't know what's going to be ready for next year.
I don't know. You're getting a little too literal about it. What I'm saying is I want to get on in that forest because I think it's not only is it iconic, like it's fucking appropriately spooky. And it's amazing because you could tell they just reuse the same thing over and over again,
Mm-hmm.
but it lends itself so well for all the chaos that ensues. I think that's my personal favorite thing about the film is that set.
I would agree, and I think the lighting for that set was wonderful. I would say everything outside of it, in terms of like lighting, I think the movie was overlit as hell. Like this movie was like too bright. The black and white movies lend themselves to especially like lend themselves to contrast, right? They don't have to be overlit. You can underlight things, and you can like play with shadows, right? And I think we saw that very well with the use of fog and like when we're in the actual woods, right? But when we were in the homes and stuff, like everything was just like kind of flat. There was no dimension, right? And we have seen black and white films. Cat People comes to mind, right? Where
Yes.
you can light things in black and white and still have lots of dimension, lots of texture. This movie did not have that, and that kind of was a little irritating. But they make up for it with the spooky woods.
Yeah, the spooky woods. So this whole overlit thing too. Does it feel like it's on a studio soundstage?
Yeah, it does. I'm feeling a little soap opera-y.
Okay. I like that. I sometimes like that aspect of these movies, where because it also lends itself to theater. It feels like a stage play. It feels like a Hollywood production, and it lends itself to being more like played out fantasy instead of reality, which is kind of what I want from these movies.
Yeah.
So
I did like some of the blocking also for this film, like specifically when he's hiding from the two grave men, as they like bring the body in. Like it's like first of all, how did they not see him? But obviously, just to make it work on the camera, it was just very, very nice blocking. It just looks nice on camera, right? And
absolutely.
it's again, like there was some impressive moments of camera work here. Overall, was just not the most impressive thing I've seen.
I would agree with that. I think this movie is pretty like generic or general.
Yeah.
There's nothing incredibly spectacular about the filmmaking about it. I think that the thing that I would want to highlight is the supporting character played by Claude Rains.
He is
the father.
Oh, okay.
Claude Rains is known for being Casablanca, Notorious, Passive Glory, shitload of old movies, and he just plays it like a Shakespearean, like it's Shakespeare.
Mm-hmm.
He plays it more so like a play, which is funny because sometimes when you put him against Lon Chaney Jr., I think he really shows how much of a bad actor Lon Chaney Jr. was.
Mm-hmm.
And that, I think my favorite shot is the ending with those close-ups when he's face to face with the wolf man and he's about to like kill him. And it's kind of like this father and son, like intimacy that they hadn't had before because there is this lack of intimacy within their relationship. And yet here they are like face to face having his son essentially die in his arms. And I think it plays out really, really nicely. I think that's my favorite bit of filmmaking in the whole piece. But overall, not my favorite Universal monster movie by far.
Right.
I think I prefer a lot of the sequels before I like the first ever Wolfman.
Really?
So,
oh, interesting. Okay. I mean, I liked how short it was. Like this is what I like.
I like the length.
Yeah, like it's just you just sit down. It's over an hour, 10 minutes later. You're out.
It's just too bad that I can't stand Larry Talbot. So.
Oh, he's a horrible, horrible person. Why do you think this movie has such longevity?
I think it's more so the lore of the werewolf and watching the first time or one of the first time on film.
This isn't the first werewolf movie.
It's not, no, but it's definitely the most prolific and the most impactful on pop culture. We have a new Wolfman movie coming out, so we're going to see how this one hits.
It's interesting. The new one is going to focus on the family aspect, less so on him being a single man, which I guess we'll see if that's detrimental, right? Because I feel like that is something, a little bit of an important characteristic here of
it's true. Yeah. And we're recording this before we see it. As far as I'm concerned with the trailer, it looks like an escape movie. So,
Yep, we saw a preview of it at Comic-Con and stuff, and it did pique my interest. I wasn't sure if it was related to the Wolfman, And you're the one who told me that it was, and now here we are
Yeah,
covering it.
yeah. As we will discuss in the next episode, as part of Blumhouse / Universal's attempt at rebooting because of the success of The Invisible Man, which was a reboot.
Which we never
or
covered.
A remake. Yeah, pandemic. Blame the pandemic.
I do.
Well, guys, that's it for The Wolfman. Are you a fan? Is he your favorite Universal monster movie? Which one of them are your favorites? Any thoughts that you have, please comment on this video and follow us for more as we continue on with this Wolfman series. So until next time,
Stay unoriginal.
Stay unoriginal.